Welcome. Today is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025.
And just a quick look back. On this day in 1927, pretty amazing, Charles Lindbergh landed the Spirit of St. Louis in Paris.
The first solo nonstop transatlantic flight. Incredible achievement.
Really shrank the world, didn't it?
It certainly did. But today, our focus is very much on, well, today. We've got quite a bit to cover.
Yeah, we're looking at a major Supreme Court decision on immigration, the really sad follow-up on that naval vessel accident.
The quote-unquote collision, yeah.
Yeah.
And also updates concerning former President Biden's health.
Right. And we'll also touch on some severe weather threats and a new immigration return program. The goal, as always, is to sort of unpack these stories, connect the dots for you.
Okay, let's dive right in with that immigration ruling. The Supreme Court.
Yes. So the court has basically allowed the Trump administration's policy ending temporary protected status, TPS, for Venezuelans to move forward.
And this impacts a huge number of people, right?
It does. We're talking nearly 350,000 individuals. And this decision, it effectively reverses extensions that the Biden administration had put in place.
The ones from 2023 and wasn't there one just this January?
Exactly. Those extensions were meant to let people live and work here legally until October 2026.
So this is a massive change. These are people who got TPS back in 2023. Many have built lives here.
Absolutely. We heard from one beneficiary, a Venezuelan woman, expressing just, profunda tristeza, deep sadness, and real fear about returning.
Especially worried about her kids' education, I read. Puts a very human face on it.
It really does. And the immediate legal impact, well, an immigration lawyer explained it, affects two main groups.
Okay.
First, you have people already in immigration court. Their deportation cases were sort of paused, frozen because of TPS.
Right. Administrative stays.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those cases will likely be reopened now.
Yeah.
Then there's the second group, people who were never actually put into deportation proceedings.
What happens to them?
The advice they're getting is to seriously consider applying for asylum, a different, often complicated legal path.
So one group faces potentially resumed court battles, the other a new asylum process. It sounds incredibly stressful.
Okay.
Is this the final word, legally speaking? Or could there be more challenges?
That's a good question. This Supreme Court decision was on an emergency motion, so it's a big setback, no doubt. But there might still be ongoing challenges in lower courts.
About what specifically?
About whether the Biden administration had the authority to create sort of a separate TPS designation for Venezuelans that could potentially still offer protection until that October 2026 date.
Okay. So still some legal maneuvering possible, perhaps.
It seems possible, yes. The legal landscape here is, well, it's complex and can shift.
What about the Venezuelans who got TPS earlier, back in 2021? Does this ruling affect them?
Not directly, no. That group, the 2021 cohort, they still have protection from deportation, and their work permits are valid until September 10th this year.
But what happens after September 10th?
Well, that's the uncertainty. The expert we consulted felt an extension under a potential Trump administration is unlikely. So they face uncertainty too, just on a slightly different timeline.
So overall, a really unstable situation for a large number of Venezuelan immigrants.
Yeah.
It really highlights the human impact of these policy shifts.
Definitely. And the complexities, the back and forth in immigration law.
Let's shift now to that international incident involving the Mexican naval vessel, the Cuauhtémoc, and the Brooklyn Bridge. Some very sad updates there.
Yes, really tragic developments. We know now that over 170 surviving cadets have returned to Mexico.
But tragically, not all of them.
No. 2 cadets died in the collision, and reports say over 20 were injured. Many apparently fell from the masts when the ship hit the bridge.
Oh, awful. The descriptions of the reunions in Veracruz, relief mixed with just profound grief.
Must have been incredibly emotional. The bodies of the cadets who died are expected back as well. Just heartbreaking.
Absolutely. What's the latest on the investigation? Why did this happen?
Well, authorities in New York held a press conference. They said the investigation is ongoing, could take maybe up to a month.
A month, okay. Any initial clues?
One key detail that emerged is that the vessel made 3 emergency calls just 4 minutes after setting sail.
4 minutes. Wow. That suggests something went wrong almost immediately.
It really does. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, is leading the investigation, as you'd expect.
And what will they be looking at?
They'll focus on, well, the crew's actions, the operation of the vessel, its condition, mechanical soundness, and environmental factors, too, like the weather at the time.
Standard procedure for the NTSB.
Right. Interviews, logs, physical evidence, the whole process.
And the bridge itself? The Brooklyn Bridge is iconic, but also old. Any damage?
Thankfully, inspections were done pretty quickly. The bridge is 142 years old, but officials say there was no significant structural damage found.
That's a relief at least.
Hmm.
The ship, the Cuauhtémoc, it's more than just a training vessel, isn't it?
Yes, it serves as a kind of floating school, but also a diplomatic representative for Mexico. It'll need significant repairs now, obviously.
A terrible accident, loss of life, injuries, raises serious questions about, well, everything involved.
Mm.
Maritime safety, procedures.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait for the NTSB's findings to really understand what happened there.
Oh, okay, let's turn to U.S. politics and health. News about President Biden's health.
Yes, the former president has acknowledged the support he's received since the announcement about his health condition.
Which is advanced prostate cancer with metastasis, correct?
That's correct. And inevitably, this diagnosis has sparked a lot of discussion, some controversy even.
Questions about the timing, how long he knew.
Exactly. And political reactions, as you might expect.
Medically speaking, what does advanced prostate cancer with metastasis mean for someone who's 82?
We consulted a urologist-oncologist who explained that, well, prostate cancer is really a spectrum. Some are slow-growing, others aggressive. Advanced cancer with metastasis means it's spread beyond the prostate. And the experts stressed that in an 82-year-old, this kind of advanced stage isn't something that typically develops overnight. It's usually a longer process.
Right, which probably fuels some of those questions about the timeline. This also brings up the whole issue of cancer screening, especially for older adults.
It does. Current screening guidelines are quite nuanced. They consider a patient's age, their other health conditions, comorbidities.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all recommendation.
Not anymore, really. The expert mentioned the risk of overdetection in older patients, especially those with multiple health issues.
Overdetection, meaning finding cancers that might not actually cause harm?
Precisely. Finding slow-growing cancers that might never have caused problems in the person's remaining lifespan, but detecting them leads to treatments that can have side effects and risks. It's a balance.
What are the general recommendations, then, for screening?
Generally, for men with a family history or specific genetic risks, screening like the PSA blood test and an exam might start around age 40.
And for men without those risks?
The discussion often starts between 45 and 55, maybe to get a baseline PSA level, and then figure out how often or if screening should continue based on individual factors.
Good information to have. Politically, how has this news landed?
Well, Donald Trump commented publicly. He questioned the timing of the announcement, suggested maybe a medical error, though he also expressed confidence in Walter Reed Hospital.
So injecting some political controversy, as expected perhaps.
It highlights again how personal health, especially for prominent figures, becomes intertwined with politics, transparency debates, and public discourse.
Definitely. A difficult diagnosis personally, but also raises these broader questions.
Indeed. About health, leadership, screening, aging, lots to consider.
Okay, let's quickly touch on a couple of other developing stories. First, severe weather.
Yeah, unfortunately, after a really deadly weekend for tornadoes, the central U.S. is bracing for more severe storms.
This is serious.
Very. The Meteorological Service has issued a level 4 risk. That's the second highest level for a large area. Affects about 28 million people from North Texas up through Kansas.
Wow. Have storms already hit?
Yes, parts of Colorado and Arkansas have seen intense rain and hail already, and the forecast shows these storms moving towards Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri.
Including areas just devastated by those recent tornadoes.
Sadly, yes. Those tornadoes caused nearly 30 deaths, and Texas also remains under a storm alert.
Just relentless. A stark reminder of the power of nature and the need for preparedness.
Absolutely. Constant vigilance needed in those areas right now.
And finally, a development related to immigration policy and returns. A new app.
Yes, the CBP Home application. Honduras just received the first flight of people voluntarily returning under this program.
Voluntarily returning. How does that work?
It allows people to return to their home country without going through detention and formal deportation. The process seems quicker.
Are there incentives?
Some participants apparently received $1,000, and significantly, the possibility of being able to return legally to the U.S. in the future, which usually isn't the case after a formal deportation.
Interesting. Who was on this first flight to Honduras?
There were 38 people, including 18 minors. And actually, 3 of those minors were U.S. citizens, likely returning with family.
U.S. citizen children returning.
Wow.
Any other countries involved?
Yes, a separate flight took 26 individuals back to Colombia under the same voluntary program.
What are people saying about the process itself?
Migrants who use it reported it as being pretty quick, relatively straightforward. They apply through the app, get financial help, and the flight booked.
Why did they choose to return?
Reasons varied. Some mentioned a spouse being deported, others cited a lack of job opportunities here in the U.S.
And the Honduran government.
They've stated they'll provide humanitarian assistance to those who return.
So this is a new tool, a different approach to immigration enforcement, focusing on voluntary self-deportation via an app.
Right, raises questions about how effective it will be, what the long-term implications are, especially concerning family unity and those future return possibilities.
Lots of complex layers to unpack today.
Definitely. From the Supreme Court impacting hundreds of thousands, to a tragic accident at sea, a former president's health, severe weather, and new immigration approaches.
It shows how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? Legal decisions have immediate human costs. Accidents highlight safety needs. Health intersects with politics.
And nature reminds us of its power, while policy constantly evolves, trying new, sometimes controversial methods like that CBP Home app.
So thinking about the ripple effects, how might that TPS ruling shape future immigration debates? What concrete lessons will come from the Cuauhtémoc investigation for maritime safety?
And how does a leader's health transparency, or lack thereof, affect public trust in the political landscape? These aren't simple questions.
No, they certainly aren't. This is really just scratching the surface. We always encourage you to dig deeper, look at different viewpoints, keep asking those questions.
Absolutely. There's always more to understand.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Farewell.